The History Boys is a very witty and comedic story about growing up. The film follows 8 young men whose school marks have made them eligible to apply at such universities as Oxford and Cambridge. The prestige of these offers catches their headmaster's attention, and he becomes fixated on making sure that the boys all get accepted. There's also a lot of focus given on the 2 main teachers of these boys' lives. One is Mrs. Lintot, played by Frances de la Tour. Lintot is given a lot of dry humor, especially considering she's a middle-aged woman dealing with 8 rambunctious teenage boys. And then there's Mr. Hector, played by Richard Griffiths. Hector is one of the most eccentric teachers I've ever seen in a film. I mean, he's not above whacking his students over the head, yet he's very fond of them and allows them a lot of leeway in their lessons. There's also something about his character which will leave a number of people slightly uncomfortable, and it adds an interesting contrast to the kind of impression he's trying to leave on his students. And yes, I'm aware that both Frances de la Tour and Richard Griffiths have been in the Harry Potter series, but when it comes to British actors, you could say that about a lot of people. Because he doesn't really like either of Lintot's or Hector's teaching methods, the headmaster brings in a 3rd teacher to prepare the boys for the application process. This introduces us to Mr. Irwin, a younger, more uptight teacher whose entrance sparks a number of interesting reactions from the students. The boys themselves are especially memorable in how they interact with each other. These are 8 young men who have lived and studied together for many years, and they talk about almost anything with each other. One of my favorite scenes is when the boys are taken on a field trip to see some war memorials, and while they're standing next to a famous statue, one of the boys starts talking about his recent hookup, using war terms instead of sexual terms. The fact that it's Dakin describing himself as a conqueror says a lot about the character, and the double entendres are naturally hilarious. But there's also some sexual tension among these youths. Posner, the more quiet and shy character in the group, harbors a secret passion for Dakin. Dakin, meanwhile, is a highly stimulated bisexual character whose personality is intimidating simply in how he carries himself. Dakin comes to realize something about Irwin, as indeed do all the students when Irwin starts teaching them. It all leads to a number of very interesting conflicts that don't always get a movie resolution. Despite all the quirks and comedic moments, though, The History Boys feels incredibly realistic and grounded. The eccentricities of all these characters would certainly seem overwhelming, but the fact that these people share such familiarity with each other really goes a long way in how much they accept each other for who they are, even though such eccentricities could get some people into a lot of trouble in any other setting. The History Boys is based on a very successful play of the same name, which ran for a couple of years before this movie was made, and every one of the original cast reprised their roles for the movie adaptation. Both the play and the movie were the real starting points for such actors as James Corden, Dominic Cooper, and Russell Tovey. Each one gets their moment throughout the story, and considering how familiar they are with their roles at this point, it really does feel like these people have grown up together and studied together for so many years. Overall, The History Boys is about life, and more importantly, what kind of things students will take with them from their education. The teaching formats of Lintot, Irwin, and Hector all show just how they all want to leave their mark on their students. While the headmaster is just an ambitious jerk who wants his school's reputation to be improved, the teachers genuinely care for the well-being of their students. The students themselves all have different reactions to their teachers, but each one has been influenced somehow. If anything, The History Boys honors the bond of teacher and student, but nevertheless maintains enough humor to label it as a comedy. So if you're a fan of British humor or coming-of-age stories, you should definitely check this one out.